All right. Good afternoon, everyone. We're, we're here today to talk about strengthening healthcare in the Commonwealth as I take action to sign several bills sent to my desk by the General Assembly into law while rejecting a small number of others. Access to quality healthcare is a basic human right. That fact, that value has guided my term as governor. Even before I had my first year in office and before I knew it would be largely consumed in fighting a global pandemic, a healthcare fight for the lives of Kentuckians, my administration was laser focused on expanding the reach and quality of healthcare in Kentucky. My first week in office, I eliminated roadblocks that made it more difficult for nearly 100,000 Kentuckians to access healthcare by eliminating a Medicaid waiver that threatened to kick so many of those individuals out of the care that they had. I did this by ending that project with the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services that would have imposed requirements on individuals that could not have met them. I did this because it was the right thing to do. Every single Kentuckian, everywhere in the Commonwealth, deserves affordable, accessible health care. What we've learned in COVID-19 is it is the difference between life and death. And it's absolutely critical that we don't wait until the next pandemic to get everybody healthier, regularly seeing a doctor, getting the care they need, and getting the prescription drugs that they need. I am so pleased to be joined here today by State Representative Patty Mentor of Bowling Green and Representative Danny Bentley from Russell. We're here to celebrate the passage of their bill, a very important bill, which caps the cost of insulin in the Commonwealth. Healthcare, being a basic human right, shows you how, in far too many instances, there are unfair disparities in coverage and care and outcomes, especially as it relates to insulin. For too long, too many Kentuckians with diabetes have struggled to afford this life-preserving and, in many cases, life-saving medication. These Kentuckians have been at risk of losing their life or permanently damaging their health simply because they can't afford the medication that keeps them healthy or alive. For years, we've heard difficult, traumatic, sometimes tragic stories about diabetics using inferior insulin, rationing their insulin, or even bypassing treatment altogether. One Kentucky woman speaking before a legislative committee meeting here in Frankfort told us how she was not able to afford the insulin she needed for several years. As a result, she developed other diabetes-related ailments that resulted in the loss of one leg below the knee. Sadly, harrowing stories, harrowing realities like this are far too common in our Commonwealth. Today, I'm happy to say that after years of advocacy and hard work by so many, we finally have done something concrete to help those neighbors in need. Today, I am signing House Bill 95 into law. House Bill 95 has several provisions that will vastly improve the health of people with diabetes in Kentucky. The most important of those, this new law will cap the cost of a 30-day supply of insulin at $30. This is the right thing to do, and it's a game changer for those who rely on insulin to live. Until now, a single dose of insulin, which costs between $2 and $7 to manufacture, could sell for an average wholesale price of around $300 per vial. When I was Attorney General, I sued to hold these companies accountable for the unconscionable overpricing of insulin products that led to these unwarranted and drastic price increases. In that lawsuit, we offered examples of how these companies allegedly were increasing the price of insulin over a 10-year period. For example, prices went up 311% for one product, 285% for another. It increased from $325 per package in 2011 to $530 a package in 2017. While these companies work to increase bottom lines and sustain market shares, Kentucky families hit hardest by this price gouging could be paying more than $1,000 a month in insulin just to stay alive. The ruthlessness is clear when you consider that in 1992, in one of the most selfless acts imaginable, and when you think about where we are in this global pandemic, and when we think about vaccines, the inventors of insulin sold their patent for just $1. $1. so that this critical life-saving medication could be available for all. This new language ensures its continued availability. Other provisions include requiring healthcare benefit plans to provide the needed equipment, supplies, outpatient training, and education to help diabetics stay healthy, and forbids reductions from this coverage by others involved in coverage. Let's be clear. Insulin is not something diabetics take out of convenience. It is something they take out of necessity to stay alive. In addition, diabetes is not a partisan issue. It is a people issue. It is a life and death issue. It is a right and wrong issue. In true Team Kentucky spirit, this bill garnered wide bipartisan support, something that I hope we will see more and more and that will dominate future sessions. I want to thank and congratulate the many sponsors, including Representatives Mentor and Bentley. While this disease is not a partisan issue, it is an epidemic here in Kentucky. We rank 7th highest in the United States for diabetes prevalence. These numbers for pre-diabetes in the Commonwealth are also sobering, the numbers for them. 1 in 9 adults have diagnosed pre-diabetes. That's 812,000 adults estimated to have it, but it goes undiagnosed. So today we'd like to hear from both of these sponsors. If I can, I'm going to start with Representative Mentor, who will introduce Representative Bentley. I met Patty Mentor, I don't know how long ago, probably close to 8 to 9 years ago. And the very first meeting I had, I got to meet her son, who deals with diabetes. He made this very personal to me. While I know many people across the Commonwealth that have to deal with this condition, I've seen the passion it's inspired in Representative Mentor, and being a dad, I know exactly why. We appreciate both her and Representative Bentley's efforts, and so we will now introduce Representative Patty Mentor.
Thank you very much, Governor Beshear. This is a day of hope for so many families across Kentucky. Signing this bill does more today than just lower the cost of a drug. It will make life better for thousands and thousands of people in the state, and it will save lives. Thank you, Governor Beshear, for your commitment to expanding health care as a basic human right. Throughout the process of getting this bill passed, you have always had our back. And with your signature, this bill becomes law today. I cannot say enough good things about my colleague, Representative Danny Bentley. Thank you, sir, for your deep and sincere commitment to the issue and for the trust and integrity you've shown me in our work together for this work that is extremely personal for both of us. Thank you to the diabetes advocates throughout the state. Thank you to the American Diabetes Association and to Insulin for All, who have fought relentlessly for this bill. Your work made this bill what it is today. And thank you to everyone who has called and emailed their lawmakers in support of this bill that did not receive a single negative vote. This day means so much to me personally. As the governor said, my son Alex lives with type 1 diabetes. He was diagnosed when he was only 19 months old. Standing here today, we can't prevent other moms from receiving the same news that I got in that hospital 14 years ago. But we can make sure that when they receive the diagnosis, one thing they won't have to worry about is choosing between bankruptcy and keeping their child alive. And I want to be very clear, this is only a first step. There is much more work to do, not just in terms of affordable insulin, but also in lowering the cost of prescription drugs across the board and making sure that every Kentuckian has access to quality, affordable health care. But today is a very big deal. It will save lives and it will give people hope. That is what we were sent here to do as lawmakers. And today we delivered. Thank you, Governor Beshear. And it is my honor now to introduce my partner throughout this, lead sponsor for the bill, and a personal friend, Representative Danny Bentley.
Thank you, everyone. You know, when we first started with this, it was an idea. And in 2019, this governor here spoke about his state-to-state message. You remember that? And it's been on my heart ever since that the diabetics of Kentucky, which is over 500,000, needed this bill. And really, this is a better bill than we started out with because it's $30, not $100. So that helps a lot more people. But the governor mentioned it, and so we stayed right after the problem. And as Representative Minter said, there was no nay votes on this bill. It is bipartisan because the disease state doesn't look at your party. And then, you know, when I went to committee meetings, someone questioned me about the cost. I said, what is the cost if they don't have insulin? I said, the cost if they go to ketoacidosis, and those diabetics out there watching know what I'm saying. And Representative Minter told me about a blood level today of 300 with some patient, that it causes death. It causes amputations. You know what the cost of an amputation is today? It's several thousands of dollars. Not only that, loss of sight, neuropathy. And so it goes on that the cost on the medical side is much more than the cost that we're going to have by helping people with insulin. A pen of Lantus insulin, a box of 5, is about $300 retail, as the governor had said. And so if you're using one pen every 2 days, you're $12,000 a year. So we had to stay with this. And so that answer in that committee was that the results of not using insulin is higher than the way it is now. So there was no nay votes. And the person asked me that in the committee. After that, he called me Doc, and he was a senator. So I really appreciated that around here. But there is a cost if you don't use it. And, you know, people that were on 100 units and thought they could divide into 50 units a day, they were fooling themselves, and they had death. Now, a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, we passed Kevin's Law, which means you can get insulin on a 30-day at emergency notice in the pharmacy. That's a great bill. I used it once, even myself. So thank you, Governor. Thank you, the Senate and the House, Representative Minter. Thank all of you for staying with this bill. It's one of the better things we have in Kentucky now. There's over 500,000 people in Kentucky with diabetes. It will save lives. It will save lives. And my final statement is, which I don't know if y'all knew this though or not, but Patty, Representative Minter may, is that this is the 100th anniversary of insulin. It was developed in the 20s at the University of Toronto, and then Eli Lilly took over. Eli Lilly set the standards, and when the FDA needed standards, they didn't do any proving. They just took Lilly's standards. So Eli Lilly, even though I shouldn't be mentioning the company's name in a way right now, but they did such good research. And back then we used pork and beef insulin, and today with human insulin, we get less antibodies and it's more specific and it helps more people. So this is the 100th anniversary of insulin this year. Thank you, Governor, again, and thank you, the people of Kentucky, for putting me here where I can work on a bill like this. Thank you very much.
All right, now we have a special message from Angela Lautner with Kentucky Insulin for All. She is the legislative lead.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I am Angela Lautner, legislative lead for the Kentucky Insulin for All chapter. I first want to thank Governor Beshear, Representative Bentley, and Representative Mentor for the opportunity and privilege to virtually be a part of the ceremonial bill signing of House Bill 95. House Bill 95 would not have passed without the personal commitment to the rising cost of insulin and addressing it by Representative Danny Bentley. He worked with our chapter to reduce the copay cap from last year's $100 to this year's $30 per 30-day prescription. This bill only applies to state-regulated plans, plans purchased on the marketplace exchange, state employees, and people under small group, large group plans. I want to extend my gratitude to Representative Patty Mentor and to every member of the House and Senate who voted yes on this measure, who got to see just a glimpse of how immoral the rising cost of insulin really is, and also knew that much more has to be done. But House Bill 95 is a step forward. It begins to help Kentuckians under these state-regulated insurance plans. It impacts about 22,000 Kentuckians. It doesn't help everybody. My chapter is here for Insulin for All, and that's why we must continue this momentum into the next session with urgency, with priority. The Kentucky Insulin for All chapter is here because we've seen too many of us, far too many of us, suffering, dying. Kayla Davis from Owensboro died from rationing insulin, and more than 1 in 4 of us are rationing insulin due to cost. Access to insulin is a human right, and we stand ready to work with every member of the House and Senate in the future as we continue our work for Insulin for All for every single Kentuckian. Thank you.
All right. Here we go. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
All of you, yeah. Thank you, Joe.
All right. Thank you all. Let me grab a pen. All right, thanks everybody for sticking with us. Today, we're also recognizing a few other bills that will help us build that better Kentucky that we all want by increasing access to health care or making improvements that help our Kentucky families. House Bill 50. According to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration, nearly 1 in 5 Kentucky adults suffers from a mental illness. Kentucky needs to make the treatment for mental health and substance abuse disorder a priority. House Bill 50 provides the Department of Insurance with the necessary tool to review the process of insurers and remove any barriers to providing coverage for mental health and substance use disorder services in the same manner that coverage for medical and surgical services is provided. The bill codifies the Mental Health Parity and Addiction Equity Act, in part by requiring insurers to adopt non-quantitative treatment limitations for mental health and substance use disorder benefits that are no more stringent than those adopted for medical and surgical benefits. These are things like prior authorization requirements, how medical necessity is determined, and the formulary tier for certain drugs. We are strengthening protections for those who need access to these services. House Bill 75. House Bill 75 represents an important step toward that will encourage more Kentuckians to serve as living organ donors. The bill prevents insurance companies from discriminating against a live organ donor by raising their rate. In other words, it prevents an insurance company from raising rates or canceling coverage from someone who has done something like donate a kidney. The bill impacts three types of insurance: life, long-term care, and disability coverage. So again, this is one that makes sure that you are never penalized for saving a life through an organ donation. House Bill 108. This law provides medically necessary genetic cancer testing to give Kentuckians the best chance to live a long and healthy life. House Bill 183. This new law will help ensure ongoing viability of hospitals across the state so every Kentuckian can receive care close to where they live. House Bill 219. It increases the accessibility of syringes and advances the Cabinet for Health and Family Services harm reduction strategy by making syringes and naloxone easier to purchase. This empowers all Kentuckians to help save lives as the Commonwealth battles our opioid epidemic. House Bill 276. This bill accelerates the path for personal care aides to become nurse aides, helping grow the Commonwealth's long-term care workforce and further increasing the quality of care for all Kentuckians. House Bill 448. This legislation increases Kentuckians' access to behavioral health services from qualified mental health professionals. Senate Bill 55. This important piece of legislation eliminates charges to Medicaid beneficiaries, including co-payments and co-insurance, that might discourage people from seeking medical help because all Kentuckians deserve quality health care. Senate Bill 163. The Affordable Care Act has led to major progress in reducing the number of people who are uninsured, including in Kentucky, where Medicaid was expanded. Major challenges remain with regards to providing access and care for all Kentuckians. As long as Kentuckians lack access to health care, charitable health care organizations will remain an important part of our health care system. My administration supports this bill, which recognizes the contributions of these providers and their impact on improving the lives of Kentucky families. Senate Bill 74. I support this bill renaming the Office of Alzheimer's Disease and Related Disorders. Its new name, the Office of Dementia Services, better reflects the office's focus and scope. And listen, the name of something is important. It serves as a guide to our values, and we have to ensure that as our understanding of these conditions grows, so too must our response. Senate Bill 154. I support this measure because expanding the class of providers that supervise home health services and expanding health care services will help better meet the needs of Kentuckians. House Bill 140. This legislation further supports telehealth options. I think it's one of the most important bills that have been passed. My administration supports the momentum realized with the delivery of telehealth services that has been accelerated and escalated with the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. This new law will also support the telehealth delivery of care and services for the long term in accordance with HIPAA, clinical, and technological IT security standards. So, in the area of healthcare, while I want to see a lot more done, while we need to do a lot more, I believe the administration's actions during COVID-19, where we've been able to support our hospitals, including our rural hospitals, changes in reimbursement rates that we've been able to secure with the federal government, settlements of suits that have been around for 10 or 20 years that provided dollars when hospitals needed them, and everything that we've done to preserve access to Medicaid is only built on by these laws that have passed this year. You know, one of these laws took part of federal health care reform and put it into state law, something that I've been wanting to do on a number of different fronts. The bill we signed today is something that I know I was pushing for out of the AG's office, and those two representatives were pushing for a long time. So I think when we look back at this General Assembly, there are going to be some bright spots, and those health care laws were certainly part of the bright spots. But there are the other spots too. And I'm going to grab my coffee, and we're going to talk about those. Well, the end of the legislative session included discussions of a number of important matters, healthcare and others. We must also discuss some of the bills that were passed in this session that were not about moving Kentucky forward, were not about what's best for the people of Kentucky. Rather, these bills were more politically related, violate our state constitution, chip away at our strong separation of powers simply because of who is sitting in this chair and who is not. What we saw is bill after bill that attempted to take appointments, duties, and other things away from this governor's office, same powers and duties that virtually every governor before me had, simply because of the last set of elections. That is not good for our democracy. Once we start changing laws and authority based on the people who get elected, we have an imbalanced system that does not provide the type of consistency that our people, our businesses, and everyone else deserve. The question is, do we believe more in the institution that is our democracy, our separation of powers, of ensuring we have a system of checks and balances? Or do we simply believe that the party that may have a majority in one branch of government gets to make every decision during that period of time? I believe in American democracy. I believe that there are certain things that the governor's office does, and there are certain things that the legislature does. There are certain things that the courts do, and that other constitutional officers do as well. And once we start changing those, again, out of politics, even if there have been hard-fought battles or hard feelings. So when we start chipping away at what has kept America moving forward and what keeps us free. The moment that we say that when a party takes control, that the amount of authority they wield increases is going down a path we have seen in countries that have not proven as successful as ours. Good government is often about what you don't do with power. Now, our faith teaches us that while sometimes doing the right thing is hard, it's still the right thing. It's not supposed to be easy. So here are a few bills that I'm vetoing. First, House Bill 275. I'm vetoing House Bill 275 because it violates the Kentucky Constitution and that it subjects the executive power placed with the governor to the control of the state treasurer. This is about investment of excess cash held by the state treasury, and that's an executive function of state government that has always been conducted through the finance cabinet and this part of the executive branch. This is just an attempt to take that away and place it under the control of another executive officer. Again, this is playing switcheroo with executive powers simply because of the party that a person in one of these seats is in. That is bad policy. It chips away at our democracy. The next bill I'm vetoing is Senate Bill 228. That is about U.S. Senate vacancies. This is another unconstitutional bill that seeks to remove the governor's powers to fill vacancies in the United States Senate or limit them. And this is important. So the 17th Amendment is to the U.S. Constitution is what allowed for direct election of U.S. senators. But when you look at the reasons that it was passed, and again, this is a part of our Constitution that we all took an oath towards. It was to remove the power to select U.S. senators from political party bosses. Senate Bill 228 violates that very purpose of the amendment by returning the power specifically in law to a political party to come up with names for a vacancy. In other words, an amendment that over 100 years ago was, a 17th Amendment, which again sets how we're supposed to go about things, was intended to prevent the exact thing that this legislation does. That's why for over 100 years, Kentucky laws provided the governor shall fill any vacancy in the United States Senate by temporary appointment. The bill improperly limits that power, and it requires the governor to select an appointee from 3 names supplied by the executive committee of the political party of the senator who held the vacant seat. That's what a political party bosses are, the executive committee of the political party. So it upends a century of precedent that numerous previous senators were replaced under. And it delegates the power to select the representative to an unelected, unaccountable political committee that only represents a fraction of Kentuckians when a senator is supposed to represent all of us. I also believe the 17th Amendment does not authorize legislatures to direct how the governor makes an appointment to fill vacancies, and the legislature may not impose an additional qualification on who the governor can appoint beyond qualifications for United States senators set forth in the Constitution. In this instance, it would add a qualification that they must be of a specific political party at a specific time. I don't know about you, but I don't think that's the right thing to do if we all want the best person and not simply an R or a D. Further, there's a concern here, one of conflict that some of the members that debated on both sides of this bill are on those executive committees, which would mean the legislation might give a direct hand to those who worked for or against this bill in selecting those names. Can we go to the next one? So passage of this bill under such circumstances, I think, is contrary to public need, and it's also unconstitutional under our Constitution. The Kentucky Constitution says the governor shall fill appointments for vacancies in the state at large. Finally, I'm vetoing Senate Bill 228 because it will increase the expense of filling the vacancies by requiring runoff elections whenever a candidate does not achieve a majority of the votes cast. All right, this next one I've talked about before, and it's one where I am very concerned because a department that in the past has had severe and difficult audits from Republican auditors is giving authority to go whole hog on paying anybody any amount and contracting with anyone when in the past they've broken federal law in doing just that. So I'm vetoing House Bill 394 because it gives the Kentucky Fish and Wildlife Commission the unfettered and unchecked authority to choose the commissioner of the Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources, even if the person is unqualified. It gives them the power to set the commissioner's salary, even if it's egregious. Think back to the former governor's salary for the head of COT. It gives the group the power to enter into a contract with its commissioner for its own term, who knows how many number of years, and to have the sole power over its contracts without any oversight. Think about that. A part of your government will have sole authority over contracts with zero oversight. Oversight of the Fish and Wildlife Commission is crucial. Fish and wildlife resources are important to Kentuckians who have a constitutional right to hunt, fish, and harvest wildlife. The Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources, which serves the Kentucky sportsmen and sportswomen, it's a significant part of our state government. But giving the Commission the unilateral power to enter into contracts with whoever it wants, at whatever amount it wants, and under whatever terms it chooses is grossly irresponsible, especially given recent concerns over its operations. In December 2018, this is less than 3 years ago, the Kentucky Auditor of Public Accounts, a Republican, called for a change in culture at the Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources after releasing a scathing audit that found the department had not complied with state and federal law and how it used public funds, including deliberately circumventing the procurement laws that it appears it won't have to follow under this bill. In his report, the auditor noted that all department funds are public funds, and they require the highest level of accountability and transparency, despite the commissioners, and this is the commissioner they want to put back in, and the department's claims, I'm sorry, this was the head of the commission at the time, claims that the department does not receive general fund tax dollars. In other words, that commission didn't view the dollars, your dollars that come in, as being public funds. The auditor found that the department circumvented procurement policy by splitting purchase to remain under the delegated authority, and they avoided additional procurement conditions. The auditor also found the department had violated state and federal laws multiple times when spending taxpayer dollars, and the department failed to properly monitor contracts to determine if public funds were spent efficiently and effectively. The auditor found the department used public funds to cater an annual awards banquet with no benefit to the Commonwealth at all, just to themselves and their friends. In addition, the report found the department used the Kentucky Fish and Wildlife Foundation, which is supposed to be a charitable organization, to bypass state laws. The report noted the agency previously violated state law, transferring $1 million from the state wetland and stream mitigation fund to the fish and game fund. And the auditor questioned funds spent on alcohol, meals, prepaid debit cards, and outside contracts that were poorly monitored. Listen, folks, before this report, the former commissioner admitted to multiple ethics violations. In other words, this is an area in state government that needed more oversight. And the previous violations included free passes to the Kentucky Derby, having department employees do chores and run errands for the former commissioner on state time, and using department resources for his personal use. So what happened? The month after the auditor's report, following a nationwide search for a new commissioner from outside the department, the chair of the commission, who was leading the search, asked the commission to put him in charge and to pay him the salary, even though that this commission was the one that dropped the ball and had no oversight. And the Kentucky sports person objected. This was hiring an insider. This was hiring someone that was supposed to be ensuring ethical operation and had failed. In self-selecting its own, the commission set a $140,000 annual salary plus $8,400 as a health insurance stipend. This, again, is an area that year after year after year shows we need to do better on, that we need to have the public trust, which requires significant oversight. This past year, we asked something real small, that the commissioner agreed to a 1 instead of a 2-year contract because we had a 1-year budget and we were in the midst of a pandemic. We thought that was something pretty reasonable. The whole reason this law passed is that the commissioner refused to accept a year, even though the same commission would have come back and surely given another year, and now seeks this unfettered control. It goes far beyond just choosing the commissioner. And folks, this is an organization that has multi-millions of dollars that, by the way, right now is on the right track. And the person in charge of it isn't a politico. It's somebody who worked their way up in the ranks and I think has created a great environment over there. But remember, all these steps that we have tried to take, the Model Procurement Code, every bit of oversight is intended to stop things that have happened in state government, including in this area. This gives part of state government spending your dollars a free pass, and because of that, we're vetoing it. The next is Senate Bill 93, which is about the State Board of Agriculture. I'm vetoing Senate Bill 93 because it's unconstitutional and undermines the importance of agriculture in the Commonwealth. Agriculture is a critical driver of our economy as a multi-billion-dollar industry that employs tens of thousands of Kentuckians. But this bill aims to remove the governor's involvement in the State Board of Agriculture, a board that has always been within the governor's executive department. In fact, the bill attempts to prevent the governor from carrying out his duties to take care that the laws related to agriculture are faithfully executed through the complete removal of the governor's authority to appoint members to a board within his executive department. Likewise, I'm vetoing House Bill 518 about the State Fair Board. It undermines the importance of agriculture as well, and it puts hundreds of millions of dollars of taxpayer dollars at risk because it allows the State Fair Board to have complete control of its contracts with little or no oversight. Think about that. This is a significant body for Kentucky agriculture with an annual budget of $52 million that no longer has oversight on how those dollars are spent. This is your government, folks. And this is an attempt to lessen the monitoring of what goes on. And we have seen what happens in areas when you lose that oversight in the past. Do you want to know how your money is spent? Do you want to be able to say that someone that you elected is on the line for how it's spent? Or do you want to give this board the ability to contract without anybody looking over their shoulder? So the State Fair Board is the governing board of Kentucky venues, which operates the Kentucky Exposition Center and the Kentucky International Convention Center, both of which host events that each year have an economic impact of hundreds of millions of dollars for Kentucky. But removing the governor's involvement, even in part, hurts both the agriculture industry and the Commonwealth. Removing the governor's central role in the State Fair Board allows the Fair Board to do business with little to no oversight, allowing them to even choose whether they follow the procurement code or not. With no oversight, millions of dollars of taxpayers' money is put at risk. I think it also violates the Kentucky Constitution by attempting to make the Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate non-voting members of the State Fair Board, a board within the executive branch. It also removes the governor from appointing the majority of the voting members of the executive branch board and gives that authority to the Commissioner for the Department of Agriculture. The full veto message on these bills will soon be filed with the Secretary of State and available online. As you can see, today, there's a clear difference in the bills we discuss. First, we celebrated moving forward in health care. What happens when we come together? We talked about a bill that didn't receive one negative vote. And then we moved into bills that were purely partisan, about powers, but more than that, they'd be wrong if the other party did it. They eroded our system of checks and balances, which is so important to maintaining our democracy. But I believe that the steps we've taken today, both in the signing of bills and in the vetoing of bills, is absolutely critical to getting the Kentucky that we want and deserve. All right. With that, I know we have some journalists on the line with a few questions. Let's start with Jack Bramer from the Herald Leader. Okay, I'm supposed to go to the podium.
Yes, Governor, can you hear me?
Go ahead, Jack.
Did you hear those? Governor? Can you hear me? Can you hear me now, Governor? Can you hear me?
All right, Jack. How about now?
Can you hear me now, sir?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Sorry, I have one question with two parts. The first part, if the legislature overrides your vetoes of these bills, will you go to court? And the second question I'd like to ask you is, why is the State Juvenile Justice Commissioner on leave?
We'll have to evaluate if the legislature overrides certain vetoes, whether or not we'll need to take court action or whether other groups may take court action. Certainly we believe in the Constitution and upholding it, and whether that is the U.S. Constitution or the Kentucky Constitution, I took an oath on both. The Commissioner of Juvenile Justice, I believe that is a matter being handled directly out of the Personnel Cabinet, and we'll work to get a comment from those folks. Next, we have Joe Sonka from the Courier-Journal.
Thanks, Governor. I'm wondering if you can update us on any talks with legislative leaders on spending for the American Rescue Plan Act, and if we can expect anything to pass in the final 2 days that would appropriate that, or if that will take a special session and when that would be.
We've had some positive discussions with leadership on the American Rescue Act. I provided a proposal to them that makes significant infrastructure investments that'll create 30,000 plus jobs in the Commonwealth, and that provides relief to individuals who need it the most, small business as well as nonprofits. I believe those discussions have gone well. My hope is that we will see at least a portion of those funds in a bill before the end of the legislative session. I believe, at least on parts of it, we have general agreement on things we need to do in the Commonwealth that will move us forward. Certainly, we have seen a start in the bill allocating $250 million of these funds to broadband. Now, there's a limitation that they put in there that I think you can expect a line item veto, simply because there are going to be a lot of upfront costs with a lot of state competing for fiber and other materials, and I want to make sure that we are not behind because of a limitation that would make us less competitive. But that's something we're discussing with them. Do I believe all of the funds will be spent before the end of the legislative session? Probably not, but it'd be a good faith start on them to get going on the infrastructure investments that'll help move us forward. Phil Pendleton from WKYT.
Governor, where are you as far as the state budget is concerned? Have you had a chance to review that yet? Are you looking at vetoing parts of it? Where do you stand?
Our way through the state budget, and it is my hope that this isn't the last version of this state budget. While we've had good talks with leadership, we have a chance right now to advance education, to replace aging infrastructure in our schools, to run fiber to every home in Kentucky, to make sure every Kentuckian has clean drinking water, to ensure that our teachers are paid a reasonable amount, along with all other educators, of investing in areas like agri-tech and aerospace that'll move us into the future. I think this budget is our chance to be bold, and we're not there yet. We're working through it line by line. My duty as governor is to look at every single line of it and do vetoes as necessary, if necessary. So, work in progress. Joe Ragusa from Spectrum.
Hi, Governor. I have a question about, I guess, the series of education bills that were passed during the legislative session that I believe have reached your desk. I guess I want to ask a broad question about what you feel about those bills, but specifically, I guess, 563, the school choice bill. I want to know your thoughts on that. And then also the bill, Senate Bill 128, which provides students with an extra year of eligibility for extracurriculars, sports, or anything else that students might have missed because of COVID.
So today we were able to sign bills related to health care, a basic human right, and we were able to veto bills that we believe violate our very system of government here in America, our checks and balances. We believe that we will get to announcements on those education bills probably on Wednesday. So our review is ongoing. There are certainly some that I have serious and significant concerns about. I believe in public education, and I'm a product of Kentucky's public schools. And I will look very carefully, and I'm very concerned about any bill that could harm our system of education when we have already, because of lack of adding, in my belief, to the SEEK fund, gotten closer and closer and closer to violating the Rose Standard. And if we don't step up and support public education, at some point, a court will make us. Carolina Buszczek from WLEX.
Hi, Governor. Following up on the education question, you mentioned that you have some concerns about some of the bills. Which bills specifically do you have some concerns about? Are you talking about the school choice and the one that deals with teacher pensions?
So again, on Wednesday, I believe we're going to be ready on the education front. We are in our review putting these in buckets. Today was healthcare and attacks on our system of government. We are working through each and every one of those other bills. We are talking to stakeholders, ensuring that we understand each and all the ramifications. But I believe both in our public schools and our educators, and will not look favorably on bills that we believe harm those systems or those people. And remember, just about everybody in Kentucky goes to a public school. Our very first priority ought to be supporting them and making sure that you get a world-class education in any public school across Kentucky. Jess Clark from WFPL.
Hello, Governor. I'm an education reporter, so of course I'm interested in your take on the education bills. The one thing it seems like we haven't addressed today, that the HB 133, which would change the way that, which would make it easier for tax increases passed by school boards to be recalled. Any information or thoughts you can give us today on your take on that bill and whether it will get your veto?
That one very carefully along with the others. I think there's a lot of dynamics at play in that one, and trying to figure out what the overall impact will truly be when in so many of these circumstances there ends up being the challenge regardless. But certainly understand which districts it impacts, and knowing that the needs are out there every day. And I don't think there would be this pressure related to this if the state did its part, and we have a chance. You know, the American Rescue Act allows us to spend up to $180 million on school construction. I think we should do that. That would certainly lessen the need for any of these tax increases at the local level. Toby Gibbs from KET.
Yes, Governor, thank you. My question actually was about the school choice bill, which you have already answered. So I have no other question at this time. Thank you.
Toby. Tom Latek from Kentucky Today.
Hi, Governor. Thank you and good afternoon. You mentioned you have a bucket for the education bills on Wednesday. How many other buckets are you going to have before the end of the week when time runs out?
Well, tomorrow I think we're going to be talking about some bills that protect the public on the positive side, and I'm sure that we will have some other bills to discuss on the negative side. But you know, this is about showing good work done, and then some decisions that I think should be made differently. But you know, I think today showed some good work done by this legislature on healthcare. Tomorrow, I think we're going to be talking about public protection, taking care of our kids, and a number of good bills that were passed there. Education on Wednesday, and we'll see where we go from there. Obviously, I got to get this done by the end of the week, so every bill will be signed, vetoed, or lapsed into law by that period. They did a whole lot in a short session, which I don't think they intended in the beginning. And my job is to make sure I understand the full ramifications of each and every one of them. Ryan Gooden from News Channel 12 at WKU. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you, Governor. With relation to House Bill 95 that you just signed today, you said how there was more work to be done within the healthcare system. Is there any other specific medications that you'd like to see have a price cap, like insulin?
Wow, yes, so many of them. Maybe all of them. Prescription drugs are out of control. And I say that at a time even when these companies are creating the vaccines that are saving lives. So listen, the pharmaceutical industry is one that is necessary. And it's one where the economics mean that on some of the drugs that hit, they're going to make a larger profit because of the research they do that doesn't. But the prices that are out there right now on drugs that have been around for a long time just cannot be justified. And the amount they increase year over year over year compared to any other country shows that it is out of control. And yes, there are specific there are certainly specific drugs that are out there, but it's also the whole. But for action that needs to be taken in the future, everybody is going to struggle affording the prescription drugs they need. Our seniors certainly struggle affording the prescription drugs they need. And so it's the overall system that we need to get a hold of and hopefully control over. Hopefully this federal administration will take a strong tone in that direction. The last administration took some steps in that direction, but this is an area that we have to fix as a country, or it'll start pulling us under like it's been pulling us under. Corinne Boyer from WEKU with our last question until I see you all at 4.
Hi, Governor. Are the healthcare bills limited to people with health insurance? If so, does this mean people without health insurance won't have access to things like reduced cost insulin?
There are some limitations in that bill, and we'll get you those. Certainly, those without coverage present so many concerns, both from access to care, but also from how they use the healthcare system, showing up in the emergency room in the most expensive circumstance where we have to give them care, and we should. That's part of our values. But the way we address all of that is to make sure everybody has coverage. You know, everyone qualifies for some form of coverage in Kentucky. And when we first launched Connect under the other Beshear, we got out there and we found them. And we had the largest reduction in our uninsured population multiple years in a row, which meant people got healthier. And there's been colorectal cancer studies that talk about how many lives that saves when we get people covered. Well, we've waned a little bit there until recently with the 1-2-3 campaign and others. You know, everybody deserves health care, which is a basic human right, but everybody already qualifies for some form of it. So our job is to make sure we get every single person signed up, and just look at what we've been through these last 14 months. We don't want to go into another pandemic being number 1, 2, or 3 in diabetes, heart disease, or lung cancer. Why? Because that's what these pandemics and that's what regular diseases prey on. And if we want to be the workforce of the future, if we want to rewrite our economy, if we want to lead in a post-COVID economy, we got to get a whole lot healthier. And that means everybody having health care coverage, everybody being able to afford prescription drugs. That's not too much to ask in the United States of America, and I think we can make it happen. Thank you all very much. And for those who are coming back, we'll see you at 4 for our COVID update. And I probably will only have a voice for about half of that, but we'll struggle through. Thanks.